Hello, today we're going to work on starting a few new basic things in Photoshop. So to open Photoshop, it should already be in your dock. If it is not, I've already shown you in a previous video how to add or delete things from your dock, so make sure to refer to that. It's very simple. But I'm going to go ahead and open Photoshop. And you'll see Photoshop, I have Photoshop CC, you have Photoshop 6, very similar. They've got this black and dark gray background and everything kind of comes in like a big frame. But when you open it, it's blank. So you're wondering, how do I get started with Photoshop? There's a couple ways to do it. You can go to File and hit New, and you'll get this window of selection that you need to make about your document, or you can hit the command button on your keyboard and the letter N. Either way, you're going to get this new box of choices to make. So it's going to ask you for the title. It's always really good to begin the process with giving your document a title, and I'll just call it practice since we're just practicing some techniques with Photoshop today. I like to, usually I'm on a US paper default, which is automatically 8.5 by 11, a letter size. Again, that's in inches. I could choose pretty much anything. There's lots of really cool options on here. I'm going to stick with US paper. I'm going to show you, if it doesn't come up in inches, it could also be in pixels, centimeters, millimeters, points, picas, and columns. You will typically use pixels or inches, most often inches, but every once in a while, stuff that you will need to do might involve creating a document based on the number of pixels horizontally and the number of pixels vertically. Down here, the resolution is automatically 300. At different, with different types of presets, that would be a different resolution. Or you can change it, but we're going to just let it stay at 300. Sometimes you'll see it at 150 or even 72. And that means, resolution means the number of pixels within a square inch. So there, in this case, there will be 300 pixels per square inch. RGB stands for red, green, blue color. That is a video output, which you will always, for our projects, use RGB color. Every once in a while, we might have cause to change this, but it is very seldom. And if I need you to change it, I will tell you to do so. When you open this, you can see their choices are bitmap, which makes a very small document, grayscale, which is totally monochromatic, black, white, and shades of gray, RGB, red, green, and blue, which is video output, CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, is what that stands for, which is a print version, and then lab color, if we were doing some really sophisticated things that were going to be printed in a lab. We're going to keep it at RGB, and we're going to keep it at 8-bit. Every once in a while, you might be asked to change this to 32 or 16, but again, it's not very common. For my background, I think I would like to start with it being transparent, which gives me just a little bit more freedoms with that background. You'll notice that as soon as I changed it to transparent, up here's changed to custom, because a US paper preset would involve a white background. But that's okay. We'll just go ahead and leave it at transparent. And the rest is irrelevant for right now. So I'm going to select OK, and then I have my sheet of paper that's going to pull up. And because I have my gray and white checkerboard, I know that it's a transparent background. So currently there is no background on this sheet of paper. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is how you can add color to that. So if I wanted to add some color, I could edit, fill, and notice my foreground background color right now is white black. I'm going to hit X. Let's cancel this for a second. I'm going to hit X to switch that. So now my foreground is black, my background is white, which is the standard foreground background color. But let's say I wanted to fill it with a color. So I'm going to come over here. I can choose foreground color, which would be black, background color, which would be white, any color I want, or I can fill it with, for sure, black here, 50% gray, or white. I'm going to double click color, and I'm going to get this window, and I can choose just about anything I want. So I'm going to choose a neat looking purple, okay? And I can edit, fill, I can hit OK, and it will fill that with that bright purple, all right? Another option, I'm going to Command Z to undo that. Remember, Command Z is one step undo. Command Z, so it can undo, redo one step. I'm going to use a gradient and fill it with a gradient. So now we've learned how to edit, fill a color, and now we're going to use a gradient. So a gradient will automatically show up as the foreground background gradient up here unless I change it. So I'm going to double click that and it opens to this window. Again, automatically goes foreground background, which right now is black to white. And I'm going to start a new gradient by hitting the new button. And with that new gradient, it just came down here. It still says foreground background. You can see that it showed up right there. But I'm going to change it. So I'm going to double click on these buttons here. These stops is what they're called. And let's pick some fun colors. And let's add a stop. So we have our purple there. Let's go to an orange. Let's add another one and go to a yellow. We could just do this a million different ways. And let's add a blue. And lastly, let's cancel that. Let's make this a green and then this a blue. And that's just cool looking. Okay, there we go. Okay, I can move the level of these, how much of each of these colors there are with these transitions, but I think I'll leave it right like that. Now that's a crazy wild gradient, but it's really neat looking, so let's just go with it. So I've created a new gradient. We're going to title it, let's title it Fun, because it's just kind of crazy fun, okay? And I'm going to hit new again, and there it's going to show up there. Okay. Earlier when I already had my black white selected and I hit new, it automatically added it to new, and I didn't mean to do that. That's unnecessary. So let's go back to our new one that we made and say okay. Now a gradient, this is the color, but a gradient can be lots of things. This is a linear gradient. This is a radial gradient, which means out from a circle. This is an angled gradient, which means around a circle. This is a reflected gradient, which is like a linear gradient but has a double side. And this is a diamond gradient. I'm going to stick with the linear gradient for right now so we can see all these cool options that happen with this. Now I have my crosshairs, and depending on where I start that and end that, whether it's horizontally, vertically, that will all dictate the colors that I get. Remember, my starting point is going to be the purple side. My ending point is going to be the blue side. So I'm going to start at the top of the page and drag it all the way down. And there, I get all of my really nice colors, okay, from purple to blue. Let's Command Z that. Let's go from left to right. And again, I get a little bit of that purple and a little bit of that blue. I don't see as much of the purple and the blue because if you'll notice, I started my line past the document. So let's do that again. If I'm all the way over here to all the way over there, purple and blue become non-existent. Okay, Command Z. But if my crosshairs are right on my document, then we get them. We get them as part of the gradient. Okay, so notice how that works. Again, the same with the top. I can start out and I can be kind of close to the page there. Let's zoom out so you can see this better, or I can be farther away from the edge of the page. And blue barely and purple not at all. Okay, so that's how you can kind of play with those ideas. One thing, if I'm on linear gradient and I start at the middle of my page and go out, everything to the left of my starting point is giving me the purple, the color on the left. If I go the other direction, everything starting again from this side is going to be the purple because I started with the purple. Now, what if I did something like that? And now I get all of those lines, but they're a little bit more harsh. They're a little bit more compacted. Okay? So you can kind of get the idea of how these choices affect the gradient that you get. Okay? So that's how you do gradients. Let's look at a radial gradient with the same thing. Okay, kind of cool. How about an angle gradient? Depending on where that's neat looking. Depending on where that point starts. A reflected gradient means that's not going to be as noticeable. It means we're going to get a reflection, so like a double gradient. So there's an example of that. There's that. That's a good example of the reflected. So if I make a shorter line, it's a lot more noticeable. And then let's try the diamond. The diamond's cool. Kind of always makes me think of like a dream catcher, but those are pretty neat. Okay, so understand that regardless of what you're going for, you might end up with lots of different but really cool things depending on your line and where you start it and where you end it and the colors that you use and the transitions that you make. And gradients can be super awesome. So I hope you found this to be useful. You can fill a solid color, or you can fill with a gradient, which is right here on a single toolbar. It is this one under the eraser tool. If you don't see it, hold down. You probably have a paint bucket that might be showing up. If you hold down on your paint bucket on the right click, you will get gradient and just select that. So again, it starts out with your foreground, middle ground selection unless you make a change. And I hope you found this tutorial to be helpful in discovering how to open a new document, how to add a fill, or to apply a gradient. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of your time playing with Photoshop. Bye.